So, warm welcome to today's Change Does Matter webinar. Today, we're going to focus on influencing without authority, and I would like to wish you a very good morning, good day, or good evening, depending on where you are dialing in from. In order to respect the time that you have given for me, exactly 45 minutes, I hope, I would like to jump right into the content of today. But for those of you who are part of this webinar for the very first time, just a little caveat to today's event. Over the last 2.5 years, I have been running regular, every 1 or 2 months, regular webinars around what makes it possible for us to show to the stakeholders, to the people around us, that change does matter, that human-centered change does matter. I have received lots
Yeah,
of questions
perfect.
from people that I have been working with, and it's really important
Be
for
right.
me to address the
No problem at
issues
all.
that
So
you
this will
have.
give, yeah.
I would love to ask you, webinar etiquette, to please put yourself on mute unless you're speaking up so we don't disturb the others and the ability to focus. So, warm welcome again, and let's jump right into it. A few startling statistics I always love to start with because it just makes us realize why it's worth spending 45 minutes together today. So the first one comes from last year from the UK, and the 70% of changes or transformation failing is a quote that many of you probably have seen before, because since the godfather of the topic of change management and change leadership, John Cotter, did his research, we know that approximately two-thirds of any changes or projects fail for one reason or the other. But what last year this research found in the UK is that it is mostly because people bear the brunt of poor change management. Over the last decades, there have been a lot of conscious efforts made to realize why it's important to look at the human aspect, but we still don't always get it right. So, one reason for us to get together time to time to talk about how to enrich our toolkit and our approach. The second one comes from Gartner. This one is a couple of years old, yet I feel it's relevant today as well. In 2022, they published one of their research papers that said that since 2016, in these approximately 6-7 years period, the willingness, the openness of employees to be part of any organizational change at the workplace dropped significantly from 74% to 38%. Their research shows that that's because of that change fatigue that all of us have gone through and have been experiencing. And of course, there is a pinch of salt to put to these statistics as well, which is that just 2 years before COVID hit the world, one way or the other, we all experienced it. So, other than the companies, the organizations needing to be really up to speed, responding, agile, and adapting to what the market needs and wants, also people, all of us, have gone through major changes that have influenced our ability to truly be present at the workplace and be part of the inevitable, which is often change. The third one is from ProSci. I often make quotes from these well-reputable organization. They say that employees may resist passively. Now, the passive resistance has been out there for a long time. But what I find very interesting is that the phenomenon of quiet quitting over the last few years have become much more evident and maybe more talked about. Passive resistance is often not when people say, no, 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 we don't want it, and we tell you why we shouldn't bother about the changes. It's about people just withdrawing themselves and staying silent in their place. Their body might be at the workplace, but their mind and soul are not. And that's almost the same as quitting. Now, when it comes to why change does matter, we always have to look at ways to bring people on board for any initiative we would like to drive. And I know not everyone is blessed with a beautiful title, a senior position, hence authority, but even them at the top, they also need to influence without authority at times. Today, I would like to have this interactive webinar for us to give the opportunity to talk about what practical things we can do about it. I've talked about what is waiting for you, but for those of you who meet me for the very first time, my name is Margit Takacs. I'm a change management consultant with over 20 years of experience in the field. I have lived and worked in several countries over the last 2 decades, and I'm absolutely passionate about taming the chaos of change at the workplace, helping all of us find ways to get others on board for often the inevitable. It's my pleasure to have you on the call and the webinar. And if we are not yet connected on LinkedIn, I invite you to reach out to me, drop me a message, and of course, stay connected. But based on those did you know facts, what are the shifts that the world needs, we need? That might be our next question. Well, we can say that it's no longer enough to get things done top down. We need to create shared responsibility for what we want to change at the workplace and even at home. We need to definitely find ways to turn silence, disengagement, that quiet quitting I briefly talked to you about, to safe conversations. And also, we need to replace the feeling of overwhelm with energizing people, because when we make our projects or initiatives relevant, timely, and useful with progress to them, I'm confident we can get them on board. Ultimately, these shifts are all needed for all of us, and we can do something about it, which is finding new ways to influence others. In my book, Change Matters, Stories about Taming the Corporate Jungle and Leading Transformation, available on Amazon, and also in my online course called Change Confident Academy, I talk about the topic of influencing in great details. Today, I would like to give you a taster, and you will see if either of those are worth pursuing for you to dive deeper into the topic of influencing and influencing without authority. So, what can we expect today in these precious 45 minutes? I would like to talk with you about why influence drives change and not necessarily the titles. I would like to talk with you about how we can build trust and work across departments and silos. And I would like to give you a 3 step model, a very simple model for you to check in with yourself time to time if you've done what's needed in order to influence without authority. I will also give you an add-on 10 practical steps in order to be able to pull the strings in the right way. If you'd like, you will be able to download it after the session. I will use polls. I will ask you to write into the chat. And yes, there will be one breakout session for 7 minutes. I know some people don't like it. They just want to listen in as they munch on their lunch. It's absolutely your choice. But I invite you to stay with us for those 7 minutes, because when we recap it, I will share with you both the 3 step model and the 10 practical tips that might be, hopefully, will be very useful for you for the way forward. So that's what you can expect. With that, I would love to launch the first poll. I'm just looking away for a moment to be able to launch it. I have a question to you. What slows down your change efforts the most? And I came up with some generic answers, but I would love you to vote. You can vote to as many as you wish. People say yes, but they don't do what they promise. Key stakeholders, maybe leaders or opinion leaders, are disengaged, not enough time or energy to build the support. And that can refer to you as well as in the organization or in the team you are in. And you don't, or maybe you don't know where to start. If you have any other reasons, feel free to click on that. And I invite you to write into the chat, because I know this is not an exhaustive list. I'm going to wait for a few more people to vote. And as we are doing that, fantastic. I see, I believe most people who want it, they've already voted. So let's have a look. What do you feel? Well, It seems that the winner of these reasons, what slows us down when we want to implement changes, is that people say yes, but they don't do what's required. In the world of change management, we often talk about change readiness. And there are lots of models out there. The one that I often refer to is the change readiness of 5 levels, which is people, first level, might be aware of what you want to change. Yeah, I heard about it. Number two is they understand, yeah, I heard about it and I can explain it in my own words. Then level three is accepting. Yeah, you told me about it. I kind of get what it is about. Go ahead and do what's required, what you want to do. And that's where many times people get stuck at acceptance. Acceptance is a little bit like lip service, but they wouldn't move a finger to make the change happen. And I assume many of you voted for this because it's to bridge the gap between level three of acceptance and level four of commitment. Commitment, as it says with the expressive title of the level as well, it's all about committing to do the action. And level five, what we aspire as many people to get to as possible, is endorsing and promoting the change. There are techniques to help people there, and it's a natural progression. But if we let them stay at acceptance at level three, they will keep saying yes to your project, to your change initiative, but they will not do what's required. The second winner in this poll is key stakeholders are disengaged. Yeah, I can relate to that. For this reason, we often talk about the importance of prioritizing those key stakeholders based on their power and influence. No time or energy to build support. It's all about finding that priority for the people, the people who we have highlighted from our stakeholder map. And I don't know where to start. Thank you for those who admitted that happens as well sometimes, doesn't it? To all of us when we don't find the results, we don't find the opportunity to truly engage people in the process, and we don't know what next step we should be pursuing. Thank you very much for sharing this. So with this, knowing that sometimes people get stuck at acceptance level and there is a big bridge to really overcome in order to get them committed, let's look at what is it that we can learn from stories in our lives. Just a kind reminder, if you are not speaking, please put yourself on mute because I can hear some clicks at the background and that can be disturbing for the others. Thank you so much. So, I'd like to tell you about a story. Once upon a time, when I was struggling to influence without authority. Yes, I claim to be the credible facilitator of today's session, but I admit I have had situations where I was a little bit dumbstruck. So, how do you influence without authority? That was the question running through my mind a few years ago. We were with my clients, we were rolling out a new mural based workflow system to support continuous improvement and lean initiatives in the company. For those of you who are not familiar with Mural, it's an online collaborative platform like Miro that allows people to have a virtual flip chart, keep adding their comments, and collaborate very effectively. So in this company, we decided that in order to enable hybrid teams living and working in different parts of the world really collaborate well together, we need to get them, the people, the employees, to start working in new ways. And one of the platforms that made it possible was Mural. It totally made sense, if you ask me. And all of us need to be up to date with the technology as well. But it was meant to capture improvement ideas, track the progress as teams and individuals were implementing those continuous improvement initiatives, and make results visible because Mural and Miro allow people to have at any time access to the work they do. I followed the org chart. I set up meetings with department heads and mid-level managers. I had the stakeholder interviews as we learn. It's so important as change practitioners. I did all of those. I even made sure that locally we had trainers who could do mini on-site trainings as well as e-learning for people to access at any time. And we held the session, but nothing happened. And I thought, I've got a couple of years of experience. Why did that happen? On Mural or Miro, we call these online flip charts boards, and the boards were empty. Enthusiasm was at best polite. So, having done what I normally do, I realized that something was missing. So, I started asking different questions, such as who are the people others go to when something needs to happen? This is a classical check on in the canteen or cafeteria or by the water cooler. Who are the people who are constantly approached for opinion, for sharing, for updates? So that was the first question. The second one was whose names keep popping up during meetings and in chats, because that informally gives me an idea who are the opinion leaders. And the third question, who naturally gathers, rallies others together and make that noise then that can really get a project off to a success. And that's when I realized influence doesn't only happen at the top. Maybe out of simplicity, we often assume it comes from there. And as Prosai also says, number one reason for projects to fail or succeed is as the lack or the presence of active, visible executive sponsorship. So we need the people at the top, don't misunderstand me, but we equally need the people who might not be seen right away. It's all about those informal networks within any organization. I told you about those three questions, more or less, that I would pose to identify those people. They turned out to be team leads. I remember there was a passionate assistant, and even there was a junior analyst, 26, 27 years old, who on the surface didn't seem charismatic or influential, but she was the glue to her team. So we needed her on board. And once we started working with this small group of informal leaders, opinion leaders, or I often like calling them tribal chiefs, things started to shift. The boards started to lit up. There was content in it, there were little tracking measures, the ideas were flowing, and finally the momentum kicked in. When we look at this chart, this little page on your screen, I just want us to remember that for any change, we need the org chart to find out who are the people at the very top, and possibly not the stupid ones, but those who really are there. And we need to find a little bit of an organizational chart that doesn't look like a classical organigram. It is a chart that shows who influences who, because it will help us prioritize who to focus on. The big lesson in all of this was that you don't need more authority. You need the right connections and the trust in the right places. It's all about stakeholder management. Those of you who've been part of my Change Maverick community and have joined me several times in these Change Does Matter webinars, we always talk about how we can engage and manage our stakeholders better. And today, unsurprisingly, is also related to that. That's what I will share with you this session, how to spot, how to build and activate the influencers wherever they are. Now, I've shared a long story, but I'd like to find out from you as well. When you think of your own work experience, what questions can we ask ourselves to help us find those informal leaders or tribal chiefs? Can you please write into the chat? In the meanwhile, I just catch up another comment. Angela shared that I think people are interested in the change if they understand the benefit of them, the why. It is a different story for them to be able to follow through on the change. Very well put, Angela, indeed. It is all about showing them the why, but also why it matters and now. Thank you for that comment. I will be waiting for the questions, and in the private chat, I can see one comment coming up. Please put it in the group chat so the others can also do that. So Eva suggests that we find the role models who can step up and talk. Then who is actively engaged in wanting to move the company forward? Very well done, very sad, Angela. who is usually promoting new ideas, Valerie says, also from others. And that's a nice one as well, Valerie. It's not just ideas from the top or from the business agenda, but ideas from the peer level or the wider organization. Who do you trust to lead you? Beautifully put, Teresa. It is a good question because just for having titles and positions in a company, sometimes people don't trust the people above, so they will not follow. Who naturally approaches others? Yes, great. So we all have got experiences, and I trust that you have been doing this intuitively already for a while. So thank you for that. A few more questions coming in, such as who are the people who lead diversified workforce? A fascinating topic, Suyash, with regards to how to lead different generations and multi-generational teams who can find a common voice from them. Who are the people that others are asking whenever they face difficulties? Who seems to be popular and sought after? And who are the active resistors? Simon, I love that you mentioned that because I don't know how you feel about that, but often I have the feeling that those active resistors are a pain in the butt, but we cannot disregard. But sometimes they are the ones who show us what in our beautiful la la land with pink glasses, being enthusiastic about a change we don't see. And Juliet shared who are active at the water coolers. Very well said. Thank you. So we've got quite a few questions here. We can actually ask ourselves to be able to find the people that we need to have on our informal map. I've got three building blocks, and I trust you will not be fundamentally surprised about the three blocks. But I would like you to take a moment and think of the change that you are driving at your workplace and ask yourself whether you can say a little yes, done to each of the three. In order to build that influence network of the tribal chiefs we've mentioned, the first thing is to build trust with them before we need it. I don't know if you've been in that shoes before, in those shoes before, but sometimes we want their trust. Like, trust me, it really makes sense. But we haven't built a rapport prior to the event. If we are new to a team or we just joined a company, it's hard to have that, of course. In that case, we have to build trust with other influencers who can help us with the butterfly effect of being curious. But let's just ask ourselves, have we built trust with the people we need to get on board before asking them for a favor? If we haven't, we'll have to look at what is it that we can do about this. Angela in the chat suggests that there is a 48 behaviors, activities that can build trust. It's actually very interesting. Angela, if you have a link to share with the participants of today, it would be wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. The second building block is offering, giving them value before we ask them for support. It's a little bit like nurturing relationships, building those connections at the workplace. Because if we offer them value, for example, we know they have a pain point with something, we cannot, and so often we should not resolve all of their pains, but we guide them to the right direction. We give them value that will create this goodwill relationship. That is very, very important. As mentioned in the chat as well, it takes time to build trust, but it's worth doing it as much as possible ahead of time. And one of the things is, as we get to know them and we find out who are the water cooler people, we find out also what pain points they are facing and how we could help them with an article, with a tip, with 5 minutes of brainstorming, how we can help them move forward. And the third question I would like you to pose to yourself is whether you have aligned on shared goals. It's so much easier if you have something in common. And maybe the change project you want to drive is not resonating for them. We don't yet know why. But if you find something related to it or parallel to it, if you are able to speak the same language with them, that's when you will have the foundational block to be able to build your influence network. So build trust before you need it, offer help, and also find something in common, a shared goal. I mentioned to you that in order to bring the session really close to life, about halfway through, I will invite you to a breakout session. And the moment has arrived. Stay with us just for these few minutes. You probably have heard before, great minds think alike. And I like the second part of that famous statement, greater minds think together. So that's what the breakout can give. I know it will not give you plenty of time to go deep, but I thought based on what I shared, it's worth pausing for a moment. And I would like to ask you, in your own organization, company, in your own stakeholder setting, who do you need in your influence network? And think about how you can build trust, offer value, and find shared goals with them. In order to make it easy to follow, I would like to invite you to use these QR code. And this can be found on polef.com/changematters127. On this QR code, when you're joining, you will be able to see the same screenshot that I've shared with you. Look forward to having you back here in 7 minutes time. Enjoy the discussion. 7 minutes passed by really quickly. I'm sure about that, but it's really nice to have you back here. And thank you very much for sharing the comments already on your page, poor left page. Thank you also for noting the little typo in the exact address and finding it. So some ways to find those people for the influence network is doing lunches, even if you're not necessarily extroverted who likes going out, physically speaking, having coffees, showing general curiosity, and joining events informally. I know it's for some people it's easier than others, but it's important to be able to take that time to build the connection. I think it was Juliet who earlier mentioned how important it is to take the time for this. Show interest for both professional and personal sides of those people to build a rapport. Ask, be very curious. Leaders, experts, key influencers, key stakeholders, the person who will implement the change. The loudest people, yes, sometimes the loudest people, not always. KOL, I don't know if it's clear for all of you. KOL stands for key opinion leader. It's basically what we're talking about. Sometimes the people who are the least expected, when we're thinking about who can support us, think beyond and the box, out of the box. We need support from all the before mentioned and HR finances, was the person responsible for the area. Work on the 5 levels of willingness to change. I'm assuming everyone is at the same level. And what challenge that is when we expect everyone already to be at level 3, 4, 5, acceptance, committing, or endorsing. They probably are not there yet. My peers, trust already built with them. Value equals to less efforts needed, which is also a shared goal. Very nicely put. Engage the role models, key opinion leaders to support, align around shared goals, and offer value, build change competency within their teams to benefit them in their day jobs. Plenty of ideas here from all of the groups. Thank you for this. Coffees on site, events are great, but if you work online, only you face bigger challenges. That's very well put. Indeed, Eva, that's a challenge. Any ideas what we can do to build that trust and rapport when we don't have the access to people, when we might be located in different places? Please write it into the chat. But having seen the chat, also the PDF attached to it can be a very valuable resource to look at. So
we had that discussion that those 48 elements, it's a great session to do with your team for them to look at their strengths, what they do already that's great for them. And you can get feedback from others to get them to mark each other as to whether that's reality or not. But it's then those development areas. What are you not doing to help build trust? What are you missing? And maybe what's not a strength of yours? And I love that session to be able to work through with them.
thank you very much, Angela, for that precious gift through everyone who is here to be able to download it. I think it is a great checklist, an extensive checklist to get going with. And I trust there are some ideas that are relevant also for those people who are working online, as Eva mentioned in the chat. Thank you very much for that. So with that, let's just have a look at our wish. So often change practitioners like you and me are approached with, Do you have a magic wand? Well, having worked in the field of change, I wish I had it. I still don't, but there are still some things that we can share with one another. Angela's PDF is one such, and today I also would like to share with you two things. One is a tool, a checklist that hopefully will help you. I will match it to Angela's 48 points, and I would like to also share with you not just a tool, but if you're interested to go deeper into it, what's the toolkit that you might be able to tap on. So when it comes to the tool, again, without wanting to be exhaustive with the list, I've brainstormed about 10 steps that I believe that we can do in order to influence others with authority. Some of these steps can be very simple. And as I'm explaining them to you, I would like you to think about yourself and those tough cookies at work or elsewhere that you want to bring on board, and ask yourself if you've done that already. So the first one is map your stakeholders. I briefly mentioned to you, it's so important to know who are the stakeholders who are impacted and can impact your change, and map them, maybe just on a flip chart, on a Word document, whatever it takes. And based on the power they have for the change and the influence, power influence matrix is something I would warmly recommend you to Google. The power influence matrix can help you define who are the ones that you should immediately focus on. this this is very important because influence starts with knowing with clarity who you need to focus on. The second one is spot the tribal chiefs. And in the chat before, we've already got so many points on how to find them. So spot them. Don't only rely on the organigram. That might be misleading you in the way forward. The third one is get curious before convincing. I don't know if you've read Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but one of the principles he preaches and teaches is seek to understand and then to be understood. If you ask me, it's that kind of the same, just in different words. First, be curious about what's important to them. And only when you really can walk in their shoes, that's when you can start doing your convincing business, if you ask me. The fourth one is translating the change into their language. Often, with people in my program, we talk about 3 triggers. All of us have a certain language we use. Some of us are triggered if our role models or sponsors speak up about the change. Some of us are triggered positively when we see the return on investment, the statistics, the numbers. And some of us are really motivated when we can outperform competitors or other countries within our organization. And we need to be able to use the number language, the role model language, the story language, depending on which one is most important to them. Between you and I, intimate setting in this webinar, I don't click with numbers. So I even fall asleep with numbers. It's not how I'm wired. But if I want to convince you about something, I do have to make a special effort to look up statistics, to make them mine. And secret or not, that's why I started today's sessions with that, because I know some of you will click with those numbers, even if my general reference is not such. Share stories, not just strategies. Of course, we've known about the importance of storytelling and the power of it. Stories spark emotions, strategies are too rational. If you want to influence without authority, do trigger that spark, because once that spark is there, you can get rational and talk about strategies and roadmaps. The sixth one on this list is offer value first. That's basically in my top 3 as well. Because if you give that goodwill, people will appreciate and reciprocate it. Maybe not immediately, but they will. Align around shared goals. Again, I talked about this in great details because it's important for us to find, for example, we both want X, and it's more compelling than please support my project. If you find what is it that both of you want, slowly you can move them towards your project. Create visibility, not noise. I think it's important to not brag about achievements and progress, but give them small wins, because that catches momentum that we need, even if we don't have the authority, the titles, and the decision-making power. Use one-on-ones. The coffees, lunches, water cooler talks can't be replaced with team meetings. So take the time for that. As one of the participants today, I recommended it as well. And the last one is maybe one of my favorite ones that sometimes I forget to do, which is keep gently nudging and consistently. Don't expect a yes immediately. And influence is dripping. It's through updates, through appreciations, through listening, and change is a process, not a pitch. So dare to go back and nudge bit by bit. Be in their face, not offensively, but be present to them. This little checklist I will share with you after the webinar as well. But if to any of them you say, no, I haven't done, or maybe I could do a little more, I invite you to put it on your action plan, on your action list, and see how you can influence without authority. Kenneth Blanchard, you probably many of you have read books from him and even done programs with them, says that the key to successful leadership is influence, is not authority. So it's not just a aha moment for us during this webinar, but to many leaders out in the world who know that it's important to trigger a change through influencing others. The second little giveaway I would like to share with you, should you be interested in, is not just this checklist, but also the toolkit, the methodology, the Change Confident Academy online course. If you are interested, you can check it out on the QR code or the link below. But basically, if you are facing inertia, if you are just fed up with people being naysayers and you struggle to get people to say yes to the change you want to drive, this 8-week course might be one way for you to enhance your approach and toolkit. Every week you will get videos of 20-25 minutes workbook templates and all of that, the stuff. But I believe that the transformation you can get is by connecting regularly with like-minded people and to talk about the challenges you are facing. So if it's relevant for you, feel free to check it out. For those of you who might wonder what are the benefits, I just picked 3 of them on the website. You see many more, but senior specialists, directors, and managers have benefited from the program because of them wanting to work on culture shift at Adidas, on strategic tools at Philip Morris International, and peer learning at Viking Cruises. So feel free to check out more of those, but you are not alone. Many people have benefited from it, and if it's relevant to you, jump on the wagon. This is an invitation for you to take the next step, and I warmly welcome you to consider that. So, with that, what are the takeaways? That your influence framework, simple steps can really lead to big impacts. Build trust early, offer value first, and align on shared goals. Find the common project. Tap on the Change Confident Academy online course if you'd like. Of course, you can also download the checklist after our call. And last but not least, if it's relevant for you, catch the opportunity in the next 72 hours. So what is it that we wanted to cover in this lunchtime session, European lunchtime session? We wanted to talk about why influence matters and not authority is the one that drives change. We wanted to talk about building trust. And other than the checklist, we've received additional links and beautiful PDFs as well in the chat for people to tap on. Don't forget to download those before you leave the session today. And I showed you a 3-step model that can help you get started to take your influencing capability in the next level. With this, I would like to thank you with Maya Angelou's quote. Many of you probably know this social activist who recently passed away, who said that I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I think influencing with authority, stakeholder management, and change management is exactly about that. I'm very grateful for you for joining me today. I hope today's session was relevant, interesting, and practical for you. And I look forward to welcoming you to my next webinar at the second half of June. And until then, we stay in touch. Thank you so much.